Today we're going to be testing out the new Lords of the Fallen game. This game just released yesterday and I'm here to showcase how it runs on my RTX 4090. I also have a Ryzen 9 5950X 32GB of RAM with the game installed on my 980 Pro SSD. So overall, not the tippy top highest end PC you can have, but it's a really good PC. So this is the sort of upper end performance you can actually expect. We're going to test this game out with and without DLSS, with and without frame generation, all at 4K as well. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump in. Alright, so here we are inside of the game, and as you can see, it is looking gorgeous. We're getting about 60 FPS or 60, almost 70 FPS in this very first starting area in the game, and it is butter smooth. We're using about 98% of our GPU, 16 gigabytes of VRAM, which is a good thing we have a 4090, and then we're using a total of about 13% CPU there. We're using 21 gigabytes, almost 22 gigabytes of RAM, which is definitely a good chunk of RAM, but that's pretty much average nowadays. If you only have 16 gigabytes of RAM, you're kind of running the minimum nowadays. Most games recommend having about 32. But look at this game's graphics though. It looks fantastic graphically too. Like it is definitely a beautiful experience. So we are running the game at 4K without DLSS or FSR2, anything like that. We have nothing on like that, no DLSS, as you can see there. We do have the reflex low latency on there, which I could turn that off, but I just felt to leave it on. We also don't have FSR on, and we also don't have any sort of like VSync or FPS limits as well. And you can see running 4K right there. So we're getting about 60 or 70 FPS at 4K with a 4090 at completely ultra settings. And because this is a UE5 game, I believe it does by default use Lumen and Nanite as well. So for certain areas like this with the lighting and everything, it's going to look fantastic because it's using Lumen. But that also makes some people nervous because of the fact that we've seen a lot of other UE5 games like Hogwarts or Immortals of Avium or different games like that recently UE5 games have not been running super great for most modern hardware. So use the numbers that I'm getting in this video and extrapolate them into your own results on your 4060s, 4070s, your 3080s, 3070s, whatever you guys end up having. These numbers can be sort of extrapolated and sort of used into your own results, or kind of to predict your own results. And of course, this is without any DLSS. If you want to use DLSS, like if you don't mind using it at 4K, let's turn that on and see what we get. Alright, so now with DLSS turned on to quality, we don't even have frame generation here, but with DLSS on quality, we're already getting over 100 FPS, so quite a big boost there. That's a very good boost to see. I'm not gonna lie, that's pretty good, just from DLSS. And then frame generation may not do a whole lot. It may only add like 20 FPS because we are only at 4K, so there's no CPU bottleneck, so frame generation won't really do a whole lot. But as you can see here, the game is gorgeous, absolutely stunning. We dropped to like 50 FPS there. That was a pretty big drop. I'm not sure if it was loading assets or loading in like a shader information or something like that, because again, this is a UE5 game, so you have to be aware of shader compilation issues and things like that. This game is definitely prone to it, just like Jedi Survivor and just like every other UE5 game we've seen this year. They are all prone to the Unreal Engine shader compilation stutters. Yeah, got him. So your FPS can definitely drop to like 50 something at 4K here without frame generation on. I'm wondering if those random drops will be solved by turning on frame generation. But I also wonder what they would feel like without DLSS on as well. So that's a little bit unnerving that we are dropping to like 50 FPS with DLSS on. So in an area like this with DLSS on at 4K, frame generation on, we're getting about 130 FPS, and this game is just beautiful, dude. Again, it's one of those games that fully utilizes Unreal Engine 5.2, 5.3, one of those versions of it, because it uses Nanite and it uses Lumen in its full capacity. So as you can see, we're actually maintaining a pretty solid FPS no matter what area that I actually go into, which is good to see for sure. I was a little worried how this game would handle transitioning between the Umbral area and the regular area, but it actually is pretty smooth. Both areas run really well. We're getting about 90 FPS again with DLSS and frame generation, but let me go ahead and turn that all off and I will see what we get real quick. Let me kill this guy. Die. Alright, so without frame generation on and without DLSS on, we're actually getting about 80 FPS here. So it's a little wonky with the FPS only because it's hard to consistently measure what you're going to get where, because it seems like randomly you'll get sometimes more, sometimes less. Like we had those drops to like 50 FPS earlier, but now I'm getting like 80 FPS without any of those settings on. So I'm not quite sure how the actual performance is going to go for the whole game. So even in combat here, we're dropping to 77 I saw there, and this is without any frame generation or without DLSS. This is just, you know, the raw 4K numbers, I believe. That's not too bad. I'm not sure what would be causing us to drop to the 50s like we were earlier. Maybe it was like shader compilation stutters and it was just a weird little bug or something, but it's been running smooth since then. And this game is just gorgeous, too. I mean, you're gonna get those people that are like, oh, Witcher 3 looks better. Witcher 3 has the best graphics ever. Like, you're gonna get those people in the comments, I'm sure, but I really think this game is just beautiful. You can kick them. Bah! This is Sparta! Fall! Dang it! Go! Thank you! Jeez! Yeah, there you go. So I would say at 4K, getting about 80 FPS in some of these areas without any DLSS, without frame generation on, like, I don't think that's too bad. I think that's about average with what other games would give you. I think a lot of people should be happy with that. Like, I don't think that's too bad. I am worried if we're going to keep getting those shader compilation stutters, though. That is a big worry for me because that's something that a lot of people suffer from with, like, Jedi Survivor or Immortals of Avium or Hogwarts Legacy or basically any other UE4 and UE5 game that's come out in the last, like, year and a half has had nothing but shader compilation issues, and it's been kind of weird and bad and gross, so hopefully we can avoid that issue with a game like this. Wow, look at this area though. This is so cool, dude. This is fantastic looking. This reminds me of that scene from Doom 2016 with the Argent Tower shooting off into the sky over there. Like, that's what that reminds me of way over there. That's so cool. So the performance of this game is, honestly, from what I can tell, it seems to be a little bit better than Remnant 2. But just look at this game though, the quality of all the models and the textures and everything, it just looks fantastic. Like, this game is really beautiful, and I think this is like up there with something like a Demon's Souls. I really do. I think this is like Demon's Souls level for graphics. Alright, so this game looks gorgeous. It is super fun. It is super fluid. It's way better than the first Lords of the Fallen. If you ever played that one back in the day, it's way better than that. It is super gorgeous. It's like a mixture between like a Demon's Souls kind of graphics and like a Dark Souls 3 kind of graphics. Like, I love it. And again, we're running at 4K right now without frame generation on, with no DLSS, no FSR2, no nothing. This is just raw 4K, and we're using about 98% of the GPU. Again, we're actually using almost 18 gigabytes of VRAM with only 13% of my CPU, 22 gigabytes of RAM at 75-ish FPS. Yeah, we're getting about 75 to 80 FPS here wherever I look. Some areas more, some areas less, and I would actually say that's pretty good. And I mean, just look at these areas though, even in like the Umbral realm, I think they call it, this like dark realm, it's so gorgeous. The lighting, of course, like I said earlier, I believe it's Lumen. I think they default to Lumen just like Immortals of Avium did. So there's no option for ray trace lighting because that's the default lighting that they use. So as with those games too, as with Immortals of Avium and any other game that's going to default to Lumen in the future, if you don't have a good ray tracing card, this will not run good for you, I'm pretty sure, because the default lighting is Lumen, and Lumen is a ray trace lighting application. So it adds up that if you don't have something with good ray tracing performance, you're going to suffer. The only thing that we gotta hope for, like I said earlier, is shader compilation stutters. If they can minimize those, I think this game is gonna be good. Let me know if you want me to test this game out at 1080p to see what kind of CPU bottleneck there is, because, like, Remnant 2 has a crazy CPU bottleneck. I only get like 75 FPS without frame generation on with DLSS at 1080p in that game. So this game is already winning so far. I'm getting probably 70 to 90 FPS at 4K without any of those turned on. What if I turn that on real quick? Let's see. Probably like 130 FPS. See, I was close. We're getting 124 FPS now, 120-ish FPS in 4K with DLSS on, with frame generation 2. So this is not bad, actually. The game looks gorgeous. Again, it's like a mixture of like a Demon's Souls and probably like a Dark Souls 3, almost a Bloodborne-y vibe to it. And I'm here for this, dude. I really am. This game, I'm impressed. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments down below. I know I can be a bit of an optimist sometimes, but that will do it for today's video. Once again, guys, thank you so much for hanging out. Thank you so much for being here. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, go ahead and leave a like on the video. That would help me out greatly with promoting the video out to more people. And subscribe if you guys are new for even more awesome content like this. But thank you so much for watching. Later, nerds.
Rise.